John Cos actually told me about the millennial pause. I don't know if you're familiar with that term, but it's like waiting
I don't think
for
I'm,
a
no.
couple seconds.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, welcome to another episode of the Rich Sony podcast. Today we have
Cool.
Aidan Jack Finnecy on. How you doing, Aidan?
How's it going, Rich? I'm doing okay. It's Wednesday night. I'm a little tired. I work with a bunch of 7-year-olds today. I work at the YMCA, so had a full day of that. So I'm a little tired, but I'm doing good. You know?
Power to you. I myself am a father of two, so I know
Thank you, man.
the the tiredness they bring to you. I mean, they make you feel like a kid for sure, and I appreciate that, but they drain
Yeah.
you.
They bring out something nice in you, but yeah, you're full time. That's great. At least I get to, clock off at a certain point. Yeah, you're full time.
Sure. Yeah, work is nice when you have kids, though. You start to appreciate it because you're like focused in on not kid time, unless
I,
your work is what you're doing. Then you're dealing with the kids. But
yeah.
and you guys have been busy. You've been playing a bunch of shows. I saw, right?
It's been a busy summer for sure. Like last summer, 2023 compared to 2024, very different. Like we did a lot of shows in 23, but it was kind of sporadic. And I've actually talked about it with the band recently. Like we none of us really felt much of a purpose in those shows. We weren't really sure who we were doing them for or why we were doing them. And at this point, we've kind of been back on the scene for about a little over a year now. The tour was fun. The album dropping has been a lot of fun. So yeah, the summer has actually been kind of unexpectedly busy in a really good way. And I think the autumn's gonna kind of stay that way, which is a nice feeling for sure.
Sweet. You guys went on tour. I didn't even catch that when I was looking at your stuff. You did a tour?
Yeah, we did a self-booked 5-day tour. It was the first time we did it in 2 summers. We did an 8-day tour the summer after I graduated high school. It was kind of like my big crowning achievement. Like I wanted to book a tour before I graduated high school, and I was able to do that. And we did 8 shows in 8 days. It almost killed us. And right after that, I went to college. I went to college in California for a year. So it's weird that there's a lot of parallels between this summer and the summer of 2022, and that they were both busy summers for us musically. We released new music, we toured, we did a lot of local shows in between. But at the end of 22, I kind of took the band on an indefinite hiatus. I moved across the country for college. And then at the end of this summer, I'm staying locally, starting at a new school for college, and we're just going to keep up the same momentum for shows. So like it feels kind of like how 2 summers ago maybe should have felt. Although I had to find out a lot of stuff to get back here, but it feels good.
Yeah, it feels good to be back.
Yeah, I'd say so because I was saying that about a year ago, and I don't know if I fully believed it because when I first came back from San Diego, I wasn't sure if I was home for good or if I was going to go back for a second year. I was really indecisive. So a lot of times last summer, I would say stuff like it's good to be back and we would go crazy on stage. But like I said, it was only recently that I kind of got the reflection to realize like, I don't know who I was doing that for. Like I wasn't super into it. I think my bandmates were at certain points and I was at certain points too, but like we didn't really know what the purpose of the band was at the time. It was just something we had always done, so it was natural that we would still be doing it, but we didn't really know what our goals were. And now I think at this point I can much more confidently say like I'm happy to be back. There's no part of me that wants to be on the other side of the country. Like I've found my footing here after a good like 12, 15 months back in New Jersey, and it feels good. It took a while to get there for sure. It was, after you uproot yourself, it takes a little bit of time to plop down wherever you are, I think.
Yeah, I can totally relate. I think you were talking with Keely Chamomile. I think that was the podcast where
Yes,
you were
a
talking about that.
good friend of mine.
Oh, cool. Yeah, yeah. That was a great episode, by the way, of her podcast,
Thank
which I
you.
think is on hiatus now, but I really enjoyed that
Yes, sadly,
conversation. Yeah, go ahead.
I appreciate that. I'm sure she appreciates that too. She does a great job. She actually started that podcast while I was away in San Diego. One of her first ever interviews, like just as a journalist, was with me. She like took me to a park and like we just like sat with a phone and a voice memo and we talked for like an hour. It was probably the first ever interview where I felt like understood and actually heard and like that this person actually cared about it. And that was really, really nice. And yeah, so like when I went away to school and I found out she was starting this podcast for NJDIY, I was like, this is the most beautiful, amazing thing ever. Like just a show dedicated to showcasing local talent and just hyping them up. And at one point on that episode of the podcast, I think I told her, I was like, you should be my alarm clock. You're just like saying all these like super positive things to me. Like, I can't believe like, so I was really happy to be on that episode. Like, and now that she's on hiatus, I'm happy I was able to do that. Cause like, that's such a good show. Like something that just supports local music. I'm a big advocate for anybody, any type of art form that does that, that supports small stuff. It's so important.
I think we need it, right? Like I've been doing that on this podcast to some degree. I didn't
Yeah,
know when I started the podcast. I just named it the Rich Sony podcast because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I'm kind of like the I don't know the polymath, right? Like I'm into a bunch of
yeah,
different things, and I didn't want it to only be music or only be programming or only be whatever else I'm
yeah.
into. Um, so I just made it general, but there's been a lot of interest in the music community, and I'm like, maybe there should be like a spin-off. I'm thinking at some point. I can't handle that on
Ooh,
my plate right now, but I feel like something that has the name of like an NJDIY or something like that would be really cool. There
yeah.
is Hidden Tracks. I don't know. Do you know that podcast? Hidden
No, I don't know them
Tracks.
super well.
Oh, you should look it
No,
up. I'm sure they'd have you on there.
yeah.
They just opened a
Oh,
record
that's pretty
store
cool.
in Boonton too. The owners. I,
Oh
I haven't
shit.
linked up with them at all yet. I just am like aware of it. I want to go down there and talk with them one day. But it's pretty cool. They do shows too. You should definitely look at.
It's funny that you mentioned Boonton because Boonton used to be a really good hub for NJDIY. Like there used to be a venue called Boontunes and another
Mm-hmm.
venue called Red House, both on the same street, like out of a movie. Like one venue was on one side of the street, and then you walk down the street, the other venue was on the other side. And they both had their pluses and minuses. They were both great venues for different things. And then they both closed during or a little after COVID. So I actually love to hear that they just opened up a record shop in Boonton because for so long in my head, like that town just was this beautiful, like music town, and like now that the venues have closed, I haven't gone back. So that's a reason for me to go back to Boonton. There we
Oh
go.
yeah, for sure. You should definitely look them up. They have a cool stage too. They've been doing shows there. It's always I played at Boontunes a few times myself, and
Yes.
yeah, I just love the town.
You had to
I
walk
just
across.
found, yeah, you could get to walk through, and like, I just found out recently too that the Misfits had recorded their first demos at a studio in Booton, which adds to like the lore. I feel like
Really?
it fits the town really well too. Yeah,
I
it's
knew they
cool.
were from Lodi, so that makes sense. Yeah, that's really
Yeah,
cool. Yeah, Boontunes. I just remember walking across the stage to use the bathroom. You really hoped that you wouldn't have the urge to pee during the middle of a band's set because you're just like, I'm gonna have to ruin their set. I'm gonna have to walk across the stage and just get to the
yeah.
bathroom.
I forgot about that. It
Yeah,
totally. I
yeah,
played a show there
yeah.
actually. I was in
Yeah.
a group with Andrew Naporent, who you all are playing a show.
This Saturday. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
about to play with him. I love Andrew. Yeah,
Andrew's awesome. I'm
that's
thinking
crazy.
of
I
coming
didn't
to
know
that
that.
show because I actually played with the August Came Early guys one time too. I just happened to
No
meet them.
way.
Yeah.
Are you
So I'm
serious?
like,
August Came Early are they're my age, but they are probably like my favorite younger band on the scene. Like we got to play their first ever Meat Locker show. I put them they're on my album release show. I put them on as many shows as I can. Like biggest plug from August Came Early. Their EP is
yeah,
fantastic. They put on a great show. I love that you played with Andrew too. That is I met him this year at the Cedar Grove, Cedar Beans open mic, which is like this fun acoustic open mic you could go to on Thursdays. During this past winter, I think me and all my friends collectively got a little depressed and we just like needed a social outing on Thursday nights. So we started going to the Cedar Beans and Andrew and his whole crew could not have been nicer to us. Like could not have been more open and just like, hey, what's up, guys? So I'm really stoked to be playing a show with him on Saturday. I'd be so happy to see you there. That'd be so
yeah,
cool.
yeah. I'm gonna try to. I don't always make it because of the kids and stuff, but I'm like, if I know all three bands, like, how often does that happen? I gotta go. Um,
That's pretty true.
I
Yeah.
saw you play at one of those. I went to one of those Cedar Beans ones. I don't know if I got to talk to you, but I talked with AC afterward, and I remember you were awesome.
Oh wow.
And
Well,
AC
thank you
played
very
with
much.
someone else.
Yes, so that would have been the night that he did like a duet with our friend Bella Miller, who's super
Sure,
talented
yeah. They
himself.
played like
Yeah,
they played the Poor Wayfaring Stranger, I think. It was Bella, I
yeah.
think.
Wasn't it like an? It was like an old traditional song, wasn't it? Something like that.
Yeah,
Like it was
yeah.
cool.
And they
Yes, yeah,
killed that. And
yeah.
then
Because
you played I could almost remember the songs you played. I gotta remember. I have a good memory for that.
dude, that's crazy.
I
Probably
don't
new songs from the album.
They
I
were
was
from the new album. Yeah.
I was trying out a lot of Freshman Alcoholic stuff at those open mics because it's hard. You have to teach the band those songs if you want to play them live. So that was an easy opportunity for me to try them out live, which is fun.
Sure, and that might be a good segue to say that AC has been your longtime collaborator. That I'd seen playing with Bella, right? You guys have.
Yeah, AC Boris and I met at a Foo Fighters summer camp in the summer of 2014. So literally 10 years ago, kind of right now, when he was 12 going into the sixth grade, I was 11 going into the fifth, and we just met and connected. We were in our first band together when we were 12. It was called Riot Dog. So like he and I have been we've had this dynamic of sort of me writing songs and then going over to his house and being like, hey, look at the song I wrote. How can we make it better? And like we basically been doing that for 10 years. Like we started recording together, I guess, with this specific project as Aidan Jack Finnecy. Sort of, I got really inspired by Mac DeMarco around the time I was 16, and I was in a lot of bands. I was playing drums in some bands, and I had this thought of I'd love to do a project where I have total creative control, and it's not selfish because like that's just the baseline of the project. Everyone knows it. Like I'll play all the instruments, I'll write the songs. It'll be called Aidan Jack Finnecy. And I guess I'll learn how to produce too, because Mac DeMarco produces all his own stuff. And I was vocalizing that to AC just at a sleepover because we were friends. And he was like, at a very serendipitous moment, like that should be in a movie one day, he was like, hey, I've actually been thinking about getting into producing. What if you did all that other stuff, but I took care of the producing stuff? We could do it at my house. Like next time you come to sleep over, we could just try doing a session. And that's what we did. Like we just tried tracking all the instruments, hopping from drums. And like that was like the most addicting drug I've ever taken. Just somebody else handling the technical stuff and me having the creative freedom to just hop from drums to bass to guitar, like move. I like to move really fast. I like to just like get it all out of my head into the studio. So I've been lucky enough to meet a lot of people that have given me that space, like Max Roush, who also worked on the record, my friend Zach Sheckman, who I did a single with. But AC, since I was 11, but specifically doing this thing since I was 16, so for the past half a decade now, he's been like the person to give me that space. So I love AC very much. And he also plays lead guitar in my band. So there's that as well. Yeah.
And he does a good job. I watched a few of the performances that you all had, and you guys are good. Like, you have a good live show. It holds up from the record to the live show for sure. I think I watched one of them at the Meat Locker. That was like,
yeah, that means a lot, man. I have my drummer Sal, who also plays in a great band called The Never Ends. He's fantastic, and our bassist Shinny, who is the frontman of his own band, Shinny Albert and the Carnies, which I play drums for. So we kind of switch around and stuff. Like I'm very grateful to have three amazing people who dedicate themselves to a band called Aidan Jack Finnecy. Like the fact that they play with me, I'm very grateful for sure.
I think that's super special, and I think it's cool that you all switched. Like, it reminds me of like the speaking of the Foo Fighters, it's not really related, but tangentially, it reminds me of like the Desert Sessions. You ever listen to that?
I have, yes, yeah,
kind of like that. Where
yeah, kind of similar stuff.
Yeah, for listeners, that's the Queens of the Stone Age. But I think it's all of them. It's like their scene. They kind of record and they call it the Desert Sessions. But there's some where like PJ Harvey had come and jammed with them, and you don't know who's on what instrument. And then you have Eagles of Death Metal, who like Josh Homme is the drummer for. So it's like,
oh, I actually didn't know that. Yeah, we one of the bands that we toured with recently, they were called Everybody That Loves You. Like 2 nights into the tour, they were on like 3 of the dates with us. We realized that they were in like 3 different bands with just the members like just moving different positions, and like we just got along so well because it was like, wait, your bassist sometimes plays synths. Our bassist like will sometimes play synth, and like I'll hop onto drums and we'll do this and this. Like I do love the fact that like we kind of all help each other. You know, I've said a long time ago, like I think for local shows, especially like a show at the Meat Locker, everybody there like in a band, they just want to have that one moment where they can sort of shut their eyes or just really forget about the crowd and about the week, and they're just feeling the music, and they get to just, for a few seconds at least, they get to feel like a rock star. You know, like that's what I love about the Meat Locker. And I think the fact that me and my friends all like play in each other's bands and sort of help each other get to that moment, you know, like I help Shinny get to that moment in his band when I play drums, and he helps me get to that moment by laying down the bass line. Like none of us can have that moment without the music actually being good and without us like pulling our weight. So I'd like to think about it just like everybody helping each other feel as cool as they can. Because I don't know, I'm someone that deals with anxiety and depression, and it's like anybody that makes me feel good, I'm really grateful for that. So I try to do that with other people's music. And even as an audience member, if you see a band doing that, like I can really empathize with it. It's like let's help this guy get to his moment, you know? Like let's give him that. He's given it all.
Totally. Yeah. And I think that's great, and I think it's a good sort of not a business model, but like a scene building model, because it helps like and band dynamic, because it helps probably dispel that like I'm in creative control here, because it's like, yeah, I am, this is my band, but when I'm in your band, you could do whatever the hell you want and I'm going to support you when you're doing that. Is it
Exactly.
like that?
And I think it helps with stuff like, oh, I'm not gonna fight you on this in your rehearsal because tomorrow night we'll be doing my rehearsal. Like I'll have more of my like stuff like it is kind of silly. Like sometimes like Aidan Jack Finnecy will rehearse on a Monday night, and then Shinny Albert and the Carnies will rehearse on a Tuesday night. So it is kind of crazy, you know. Like well, yeah,
I think that's actually nice separation to have too. I was going to ask, do you just kind of like meld it all together and circle around the instruments, but you
yeah.
actually cut it out?
We definitely separate it, you know, like because my drummer Sal doesn't play in Shinny's band, and then Bella, who you saw play with AC, they don't play with my band. So but we also our rehearsal space is AC's studio, which I don't record as much in anymore. It's kind of become more of a rehearsal space, although he still records other people. So like yeah, like this year when I was first getting home and like starting a job and then starting school again, like a nice consistent thing for me was I would always start the week consistently at AC's. Like Monday night would be my rehearsal, Tuesday night would be Shinny's, and then sometimes we'd have a movie night in there, or and then on Thursdays we would go to the open mic. And then Fridays and Saturdays we would have shows. So like sometimes like I would wake up Sunday and I'd just be like, dude, I'm not going to see you today. And like that's okay. It's been like we see each other 6 nights a week sometimes, and it's and I don't know. I kind of look forward. It's like in my 30s or 40s, I don't know if I'll have a routine like that. So like I'm kind of trying to look back on it fondly while I'm still in it. Like as busy as it is sometimes and as tiring as it is sometimes, like I'm grateful to have the good problem of playing too much music. Like it's a
Yeah,
very nice.
yeah. And hold on to it, you know, because
Yeah,
when I was younger, I didn't have it like that. When I was, how old are you now?
I
You're
just
in
turned
your
21
20s.
this June.
Okay, so
Yeah,
maybe it was like I had my one friend where we just went to his house, but we had basically one or two bands that we had like an original band and then a cover band, and we'd play at like Rutgers the
that's cool.
covers. But
Yeah,
it
that's sick.
was nice, but then it slowly like people get busy, and then
Yeah,
that's how I became a
my,
solo artist, you know, because it was like
actually,
I can't be
I guess you.
coordinating with people anymore. It's like the opposite
Yeah,
of what you
it's
had.
exhausting to coordinate with people. It really is, and I guess my goal is, and this is hopeful thinking, but my goal is that before life gets too busy for us to continue with this can get busy enough for us to step away from life a little bit. And the thing is, you know, at certain points, like life already seems too busy for certain people. Like my drummer works full time at UPS, he pays rent, and it's stressful sometimes. Sometimes like I feel pressure to get us to a certain point before we can't put the effort to get to that point anymore. But I'm also I don't know, personally speaking for myself, I'm 21 years old and I'm ready to give this a shot for a very long time. Like I was like a kid that was very obsessed with this, just reading book after book about band after band and like just watching video after video. So I realized in San Diego when I was in college and not pursuing music, like I realized that I hadn't prepared myself for much else. And I obviously could. I'm not trying to down talk myself, but that this is sort of I don't know, the path I see myself on and I do sort of have the experience of fully taking this component out of my life, having done that in San Diego and realizing how just how that feels. Like it's not a feeling that I miss, and it's one of the things that I'm most grateful for, like just in the space that I'm in right now, to be so busy with so much music. If I could have seen how busy I could be when I was in San Diego, I didn't really see a future with music. I didn't really see a way to get back to this. So if I've been able to see like not only can you come back to music, but you can come back even more so than you ever were before. Like I would like to be able to tell myself that. That would have given me a lot of hope for sure.
I get that, and we can unpack that because it's definitely a good topic. But before then, I want to tell the listeners because they might not know that your album is about basically your time in San Diego,
Pretty
right?
much, yeah. I recently released my first full length album, The Freshman Alcoholic, which is a loose concept album about my freshman year of college in as a student at San Diego State University. Yeah, and just being a 19-year-old young adult living like several thousand miles away for the first time, really with no family or any connections there. Like I just was in a very fortunate position where my parents had saved for me to go to college and had always really wanted me to go to college. Like I know that's a position that a lot of people would die to be in. So I'm really grateful for that. And somehow I got the grades to go to a school in California. I still don't know how that happened. I'm not a very good student, but I just remember getting that email, just like, you've been accepted to San Diego State University. I was just like, that's where Blink 182 is from. Yeah, I could go there. I could try that out. And that's kind of all the thought I gave it. So when I got there, I was a bit without purpose and didn't have a band, didn't play live, had just come off of like my first tour, like off of playing live quite a bit. So it really was just like going, going, going with music until it wasn't. And I had no preparation for what kind of toll that would take on me mentally. So that's where all the songs came from, really. Like all 18 songs were written in a dorm room and then played over and over again in that dorm room because I had nothing else to do. And I was just like hoping somebody would hear me from outside the window, just like, listen to this guy play his angsty songs. Like, yeah. So, yeah. So it is definitely true to say the record is about my time in San Diego, for sure.
And so I wanted to ask you too, you had mentioned in, was it the one podcast you did with, was it something with Dom?
Why am I blanking?
It was the one where you talked about like, it's important because it's a good Doug. It was with
Doug Talks. I've done a couple of those. Yeah, Doug is an old friend of mine.
Those were really good too.
Thank you. That's cool. Yeah, he likes to ask existential questions and stuff. You know, we just go off on that.
I dig that very much. And I think on there you mentioned that, maybe it was on a different one, but you mentioned that you're a journaler.
Yes.
Did you journal before? Did you? Same. So I always love hearing that because I'm like, yeah, it's super helpful. Did you journal before that? Did that help you while you were in San Diego?
Yeah, I guess.
Organize?
Funny enough, I'd say journaling is, it's weird to say. It's, for me, I view it less as an artistic practice and more as just a mental health practice. So when I was in San Diego at like my lowest point in mental health, like, you know, not to sugarcoat it, drinking myself to death, I was not journaling. I was not in a space where I was trying to even look at my thoughts. I was trying to hide from my thoughts as much as possible. Like I would have therapy sessions where I would just like put up the biggest front possible and then numb myself right afterwards. So sadly, I wasn't journaling a whole lot. I was actually, funny enough though, now that you mention it, this is a good interview because I'm just talking about things I didn't think I would talk about. In San Diego, I had a friend take their own life during my first semester of San Diego. And after he did that, sort of as a way of communicating with him, I started just talking to him via voice memo. I would just say, hey, so-and-so, and I would start talking to him. And to be honest, just thinking about it now, that was my form of journaling at the time. That was where I would actually be with my thoughts. I would go to this parking garage where I actually talk about it a few times on the album. It was a good parking garage. It would give me some space right across the street from my dorm room. I would just go there, hit record, and I would just walk in circles, sometimes for up to an hour, just like telling him what was going on day to day, how I was feeling. And I'd like to think I'm a bit of a self-reflective person. Like if I'm in the right headspace, I genuinely do enjoy dissecting my thoughts and like, why am I feeling this way? What led to this feeling and how am I going to get out of it and stuff like that. So when I would get talking, I would really get going and I would be doing that for hours. So I guess in some way I was journaling in San Diego. I just didn't really view it like that and I wasn't aware of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I only started doing journaling with voice memos in the past few years because my journaling had fallen off after I had kids, and started the podcast, and I didn't expect having a podcast to take as much energy as it actually does. And I love doing it, but I kind of was like, yeah, it's just like an hour a week or whatever, but like it's not because you have to edit the thing. I want to be prepared. I want to be better. I want to do better interviews. I want to extract the best I can, so it ends up taking up a lot of time. And then like, I have to play guitar, as you were saying too. Like I know that, my wife knows that. It's like a criteria for our life. Otherwise I turn into like a beast.
It's like getting hangry, except with guitar, it's
exactly.
Like you got to do
it. Yeah. Like I'll like stay up, I'll have to wake up at 7 and I'll just like be like, it's fine. I'm just going to drink Red Bull this month or whatever. I'm going to play guitar until 2 a.m. I have to, like I can't go to
also,
sleep.
Rich, can I just interrupt you to say, I love that you spend so much time on the podcast because I'm sure there are some people who do some shitty podcasts that do just spend 1 hour a week on it, so like as much as it might just seem like this is what you have to do, like you are putting forward the effort and it really comes through.
Oh, thank you. Thanks. And I
Yeah.
want to,
Yeah.
right? Like I think
Yeah.
it's useful for even as a musician, right? Like I have an album that I want to record at some point, but I've done everything myself in the past. Like
Mm.
I went to school for computer science and for music production. Similar type of thing. I went to upstate New York first semester, became very depressed, did not like it there. Lots of parallels actually between our stories where I had a
Dang.
friend, he didn't take his own life, but he ended up having like a brain tumor and he passed away, and I came
I'm so
home for the
I'm so sorry.
funeral. Thanks. It's okay. I mean,
Hmm.
this was a long time ago, but I do miss him all the time. And I came home and I had seen my friends that I was in my band with before, and I'd seen all these people that I'd known, and I didn't like make any connections with anyone in New York like that,
I get
right?
that.
Like
I s
these people for 10 years, and you know people for a month.
Yeah.
So I came home.
Well, I love that there are so many parallels because if there's one nice thing about the album coming out is that I've actually had some friends tell me like, "Hey, I was also really in a rough space after my first year of college, or specifically in my first semester." Like, I'll just like, funny enough, I remember thinking in that first semester, I had so many like out of body thoughts during that time. I don't think I ever fully was in the experience. Like, I was the whole time very much kind of on the outside looking in, being like watching these kids who had gone from crying in their parents' arms when they were being dropped off to just a week later, like decorating their dorm and like getting a plant and like acting all adult. Like, as mean as it sounds, I was kind of looking at it just like, this is silly. Like, we're all playing pretend. Like, what is this? Like, I know you're not a real adult. Like, why are you trying to act like it? This is really interesting. Like, I just found it kind of comical, the whole situation. And I remember thinking like, this system is flawed. Like, I had thoughts of I like the I just had thoughts of, I wish I could take my high school class and just travel life with them. And it sounds so silly to say that now because I didn't really like my high school class that much, but I just, by that time I graduated, I thought, we've spent so much time together. It doesn't make sense for us to all break apart now. Like, what, like, if anything, we've just figured out how to make this work. And they call that graduation goggles. It's not realistic. And I don't even feel that way now, but I very much remember in those first few months just feeling like, why am I being subjected to this flawed system? Of course I'm in pain right now. Like, how is everybody not in pain? This seems like a crazy thing that the world does to you. But that's just growing up. But it was I remember that feeling very, very well. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and it's closer for you too, but it's still relatable. It's a timeless thing, I think, that you're talking about on the album, because I felt when I listen to it, I hear your story, but I definitely can relate to it from that experience, right?
Thank you. Yeah. I'm so glad. That's
I
that's the
hope it
goal.
could help people, like I hope when people do go
I
out
hope so too.
and if they could someday, who knows, if it blows up, people could listen to it and
Yeah.
kind of get that solace. Although we're both sitting here or standing here saying we abandoned it, so I don't know. I
No, but
definitely
like,
came home and enjoyed it here more.
yeah, me too. Like, I don't think I abandoned much. I'm happy to be where I am. I actually visited San Diego at one point in this past year, and it was very nice. But I also came away feeling like, yeah, I made the right decision. I'm happy to be visiting as opposed to living here. And yeah, I those are really kind words. I hope that people find comfort in the music. I said in some interview a long time ago that I would like to be nothing more than like free digital therapy. I guess not free because you have to get a music subscription, but anybody could listen to Spotify with ads.
Hmm.
So I would like to think that just someone who can't get therapy, some like, you like, I like to be hyper specific with lyrics because the more specific you are, the bigger that reaction is going to be from someone when they do relate to it. Like, if you could talk about some type of experience and the mass public could go, "Oh yeah, like he's talking about that." But if you narrow it down to like this one kind of painful, almost uncomfortable thing to talk about, somebody somewhere is going to be in their room listening to that and they're going to sit up and go like, "Oh, somebody else feels that way. Somebody else like actually thought those words and was brave enough to put it out in a song." Like, that makes me feel so much better. And I just know that that's the case because that's happened to me and that happens to me over and over and over again. I think the reason why I love music so much is because music loves me, because like, I connect with it so much, like so, so yeah, like, if I can serve, serve that purpose for anybody, I can die happy for sure. You know?
definitely. And I never thought about that, like as songs being like free therapy for someone, but it's so true, and it's been the same way for me, right? Like I've gone to therapy for forever, right? Not forever, but
Yeah,
since I was about 20,
I
and
get you.
I get a lot out of it for sure. I think it helps me be vulnerable, but music is there that day,
Yeah,
for all of the different, it's like you have a box full of I think of like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas when he opens up the
yeah,
trunk and he has all the drugs
yes,
back there. You're like,
yeah.
you know what, I'm mad today, let's whip out some DMX right here,
That
like.
that is that is such a cool way of putting it. Yeah, like I'm like this today. I'm just gonna take this out. Like it's like this album is my weapon to combat this feeling almost. Like yeah, I totally get
Yeah,
that.
yeah, it's like your team. Yeah, totally.
Sometimes I think back to the period of like 10 to 13, like before I started writing songs, when I was
Mm,
just listening to music and first getting obsessed with music. And I think back to how pure that was. Like before you become a teenager and you try alcohol and drugs, before you even become like a preteen and start playing music. Like just like when you're first getting bitten by the bug. Like I wish I still love music and it still touches me in big ways, but I sometimes and maybe I just romanticize it too much, but I miss just how magical it could feel when I was 10 years old and just like in the backseat of a car and putting on headphones. Like it would feel magical, just straight up magical, listening to songs.
sure, and your mind is so much more fresh. I think about that a lot, right? Because I'm a parent and I'm introducing music to my children who are young still. They're 2 and 4, but
Yeah.
you're just like, yeah, today we're gonna, like, lately I've been trying to teach them all of the Beatles, right? I'm like, you guys need to know this. Like, it doesn't matter what you're gonna
Yeah.
listen to, but like, you need to know the Beatles. So we're gonna go through. We'll skip what's inappropriate, but like, there's not much that's
Yeah.
inappropriate there.
I bet
Maybe Happiness is a Warm Gun or something we'll skip, but
for
for the
sure.
most part,
Some white, some white album stuff. Yeah.
yeah.
That's great.
And yeah, it's
No,
cool. I think back to that time a lot too. I think, what was it? What was the first pivotal type of music like that for you? Do you remember?
it's funny. I would say, my dad like really tried to put me in sports. Like soccer was a big thing that he pushed for a long time. And I tell him this and we laugh about it. The thing that I remember most about being a soccer player were the CDs that he would play in the car on the way to and from games. And then during the soccer game, I'd just be standing on the field, daydreaming, kind of replaying the song in my head. So like he would play one that was a huge for me. Like I was a 10-year-old, very obsessed with Green Day. He played American Idiot in the car, and that had a big impact on me. That was the first band that I just heard them singing about inappropriate things, but I could relate to it and just really. I think I loved Green Day even before I could relate to them. To be honest, something about just the chord melodies and the way Billy Joe Armstrong writes songs still to this day really connects with me. And my dad, funny enough, like is a big 80s metalhead. He graduated high school in 85 and he listens to a lot of Kiss, a lot of Def Leppard, a lot of AC/DC, a lot of Iron Maiden. So certain albums by those sort of like butt rock bands that a lot of my friends don't listen to as much. And I have to defend AC/DC to a lot of friends of mine these days, but that is very much in me. Like there's no getting it out of me, even if the lyrics are a little crass sometimes and the music a little simple. It's just that is my meat and potatoes. That's my stuff. So those are the very early ones for sure.
Yeah, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that, by the way.
Thank you.
I heard a lot of that
Thank
as
you.
a kid too. I heard a lot of Stones.
Yeah.
I
Well,
got no Beatles. My parents did not like the Beatles. So I had
really?
a friend that his dad was obsessed with Dylan and
Huh.
the Beatles. So I got into them in his car. So I remember listening to that stuff for the first time on the
That's
way to
interesting.
like the movies or whatever with my friend. But for me, it was the
Yeah.
Stones and Zeppelin. Those were the big ones.
Zeppelin was big for me too. Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah, a Stones household versus the Beatles household.
Exactly.
Interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Um, there was a
Yeah.
point I wanted to make before oh yeah. So even though you weren't journaling while you were in San Diego, one thing I had noticed about your songwriting is that it almost feels like a journal entry to me, and I like that. A lot of the ways you kind of almost so even though you say it's
Thank
not
you.
a creative endeavor, you are doing that repeated process. So I feel like it kind of must have subliminally done
You're right.
something. Um,
I
and I
think,
like the way you word
yeah,
things that way. Go ahead.
that is very nice of you. I can see how that would be true because the songs on the Freshman Alcoholic were written in a way that I hadn't really I hadn't written that way much before. I probably had little spurts of being sad and writing a bunch of songs in a short period of time. I actually had another spurt of that this past winter. So it has happened periodically throughout my life, probably going back as far as like middle school, like where I would just like be in a space where there was not really much I could face to do except just sitting down with the guitar. For me to do anything, I had to attach like an aesthetic to it in my head to be able to view it as cool. And when I'm in a very self-loathing space, it's hard to attach an aesthetic to anything. But the one thing I kind of could, even when I was feeling super shitty about myself in San Diego, even when I was just a drunk who was failing my classes, who was not leaving my dorm room, I could still stupidly attach the aesthetic in my head of, oh, but I'm a songwriter. Yeah, like I don't have my shit together. I don't have any friends right now. I'm not doing well in school, but it's okay that I'm not doing well in school because I'm a songwriter. I can just sit here and write my songs. So I got into that space probably like early 2023. So like the start of the second semester, I kind of stopped trying to make a life for myself in San Diego because kind of like you had said, I had gone home and I'd seen that connection with old friends and I shouldn't have gone back for a second semester. Like there was real talk of me not doing that. And when I did that, it kind of went downhill, but I got all the songs out of it. So I can see the journaling aspect of it because it genuinely was a daily practice for me. Like I don't think all 18 songs were written in 18 days. In fact, I know that they weren't, but there are probably like 6 or 7 of them in no particular order that were written in a very close time span where I would just wake up, kind of just roll out of bed, grab the guitar, and just kind of write. And I wouldn't drink and write. Drinking was my way of numbing it, but like I would kind of just to feel good about myself in some sort of way, I would write a song. And yeah, so I think a lot of the lyrics probably relate to each other and probably talk about similar things because they were written from that space.
Sure. And you want to go? Do you want to go through the songs? I'd love to do that if you
Dude,
want
I would
to.
love to if you want. Yeah,
Cool.
that'd be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Before we
please.
do that, I want to just say, even though you're only 21, you and AC started doing this, the recording, and you've had the band going for a while, and you can already tell, even though this is your first full length album, like going through and listening to the progression of your music is impressive. You all have done a good
Thank you.
job, and when you get to this album, I mean, I listened to this one first and then went back. Usually I listen to the latest thing, then I start at the beginning and go through. And
That's cool. Yeah,
yeah, I think it's a good method, and
yeah, I
it
agree.
it definitely is very impressive when you go back and listen to this. You can tell that you all have put love into each project and that you're having fun each time with getting better. But the songwriting
Yeah,
and the recording is really good on here. I think this is a great album. I think you guys really hit the
thank you.
nail on the head. And
Thank you so
opening
much. Can
with
I just say,
yeah, go, yeah,
I just want to say, I really liked what you said. Enjoy. It sounded like you were enjoying getting better. That's such a nice, but also great way to put it. Like, because you would hope to be getting better with each thing, and I can definitely say we were enjoying it with each thing. So, yeah, we enjoy the process. Like like I said earlier, I really realized that first session that we did. Like, this is like a drug. Like, I enjoy recording. This is fun, and I also enjoy putting it out to the world. So, yeah, thank you.
and I think that's a good segue into even the first song, into Daylight, right? Because one of the things I
Yeah,
love is the opener, right? Where I think that's AC talking, right? Where you're
it
like the
is.
E
Yep.
major thing. I love that.
Yeah. Dude,
Um,
thank you because that was a last minute thing. We added that on kind of at the very end. Yeah.
it adds a cool thing when you listen to the album on repeat too. It gives it sort of a good like,
Cool.
oh, I'm back at the beginning.
Yeah, a little yeah. Because that is from a video of the first session. We started recording the album in early July of 23, and sessions kind of went into October. So it was summer/autumn album. And yeah, that was just I was behind the drums. AC was sitting at Max's piano. Max was setting up mics and stuff. And yeah, I just had it in my head. I was like, oh, he's playing piano. Like, what if this would be this would be cool. But then I didn't pursue that idea for a while. I'm happy we tacked that intro onto there. It's cool. Also, I love showing people that it's not that I think anybody assumes it is, but I love showing people that Aidan Jack Finnecy excuse me, is more than just myself. Like I like that the first voice you hear on the album is AC Boris. I really like that. So
I do too. And I think as I've, studied your music this past 2 weeks or whatever, I think that has to, that's why I said that in the beginning of the interview too, because it separates you a lot. I've even thought in my head, I'm like, should these guys be a band? Like, should they name it? But I don't think so. I think you're doing it the right way, but it is a band, but
thank
you're
you, man.
just all are.
It is a band. It's a weird, and it is a weird line that we cross sometimes. I recently typed my name into ChatGPT because I saw a friend of mine do it, and ChatGPT said Aidan Jack Finnecy is an Australian musician and the frontman of the band named after him. Other than the Australian part, I think that's actually pretty true. Like I've never put it that way, but I'm the frontman of the band named after me. And the reason it's named after me is because I do track all the instruments in the studio. Like I am the only person you're hearing when you listen to the songs. Like so that's the only way I don't feel like an asshole calling it Aidan Jack Finnecy. But it's a weird line. It definitely is. Yeah.
Sure. And you want to talk about Daylight a little bit?
Yeah. So Daylight was a song I started in senior year. I had the first verse and the first chorus. I actually came up with the riff while I was working at a music store called Cool Cat Music, which is sadly now closed. It used to be open on Bloomfield Ave in Montclair. I used to work there in my senior year of high school. I would just tune the guitars and talk with the owner, Ken, who is one of my best friends. He played some trumpet on the album, played some piano. But yeah, I just came up with the opening riff and I finished it once I got to San Diego. That was before the depression kicked in. I'd say that was very early in the first semester. At the time, I was actually going through a bit of a sexual type of not awakening, kind of like just questioning. Like I was like, what is my sexuality? Why am I attracted to these types of people? Like just kind of, I had a lot of time for reflection in San Diego. Like I just had a lot of time to look inward. And for a little bit, that was positive. That was kind of like, let's find the root of some of this stuff. And I'd say Daylight is a song like that, which is why intentionally in the first verse, we're talking about Claire, who is she, he, or she, her pronouns. And then in the second verse, we're talking about this character named Maddie, which is supposed to be spelled with two T's. So it's supposed to be more of a masculine Maddie with they purposely using they, them pronouns, stuff like that. So yeah, I'd say Daylight's very much from the perspective of 19-year-old plopped down in San Diego, just going, whoa, what is all this? Like I like it as the opener to the album for sure.
That's cool too that you had written it a little bit beforehand, and it's kind of like an upbeat song, so it reminds me almost of your older stuff. So it makes sense, and it kind of gives a good cool. It's a good opener.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, let's go to the next one. What, you want to talk about this cool. Fleeting moment a little bit?
Yeah, the Fleeting Moment is a song that is another reflection song. There's another, like the album was not written completely chronologically, like in order, but a lot of it, like a lot of the early songs in the album were written early on and vice versa with the older songs. But Fleeting Moment, I'd say is a reflection on being a younger kid in a lot of older circles. Like I briefly mentioned earlier, I played drums in a lot of bands when I was younger, particularly one band where I was 14 in the 8th grade, and then the other members were like in college or in their senior year of high school, which isn't a big age gap, but at the time it feels massive. So like I was 14 and going to these parties where I maybe saw some friends doing some stuff that they shouldn't have been doing, but it's also just normal teenage stuff. But at the time when you look at these people like your older brothers and you're like, this guy is the reason why I'm allowed to be here because my mom trusts him and stuff like that. It's like you see some stuff maybe you shouldn't have. And in San Diego, when I was in a very self-loathing headspace, I was thinking about that stuff in a negative way. I was thinking, what messed me up so badly? Was it seeing that too early? Was it being in that space at too young an age? Like, oh, maybe that was a mistake. I don't think that way anymore. But at the time, when I was trying to find reasons for why I was messed up, I guess I was trying to pinpoint stuff like that. Fleeting Moments, a bit like that.
Interesting. Do you still play the song, even though you're not in that headspace anymore?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, we actually learned that one after the album came out. We learned that one for tour, so that was the new song on tour. That's a fun one to play for sure.
How do you approach that? I do the same thing. I'm just curious, like, how do you get back into that headspace? Is it fun for you? Is it kind of like going to play that character that you once were?
I guess I view it as a character, which helps. I do view the freshman alcoholic as somebody I'm not anymore, and I think it was hardest when the album was coming out, as opposed to every night when we go to play the song. I think I had to overcome that hump when I came to the releasing of the album, because the album kind of snuck up on me when it came out. Like we recorded it all last summer and last autumn, finished the whole process for it probably by like early 24. So in June of this year, when it came time to release it, it was almost like, not like I had forgotten about this thing, but it was like this big part of my life, which is not where I am anymore. And maybe I didn't fully realize I'm not there anymore until I took a good look at it and realized, oh, I'm in a different space. So if there was any hump to overcome, I think it was just putting out the album and finding a way to tell people the story of it without making it seem like I'm still there. Writing the big Instagram caption was a big deal for me, figuring out how to vocalize what the album was, how much I wanted to reveal, how much I wanted to leave up to interpretation. So I'd say the night of June 24th, because the album came out on June 25th. The night of the 24th is that was really the big time when I had to sit down and just think, how much of this character do I still want to embody? Like, how much do I want to just totally leave behind? How do I make it clear that I'm not this guy, but I'm also promoting stuff that this guy made? Like, and like that's the reason why the album cover is that particular photo. I didn't get to include this in the Instagram caption because it was too long. But the reason that particular photo is the album cover is because that is the freshman alcoholic. Like, that is a photo of me taken by a friend of mine at a party in San Diego, just out of my mind, just not in a good space, probably going to go back to my dorm room and just get worse after that. Like, and it's not the best photo of me, and I do look kind of just messed up and kind of spooked, but that's why I like it. Like, that helps me separate it. Like, that guy, that's the freshman alcoholic, not the person who's talking to you, but the person that you're looking at when you open the album. You're looking at the freshman alcoholic right there.
Very cool. I think that's,
Thank you.
growing through that is, great. I'm happy that you've grown through that too, and it's nice that you have that captured there too, because it can help you remind yourself not to become
it's
that
special. Yeah,
but
it's very special.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I lost my train of thought, but yeah, it's
okay.
oh, I was gonna say that the headspace of releasing the record changed a lot. Like, when I was recording it, I was still in a pretty bad space and kind of just thought, like, I just got to record this just to prove to people that I did something in San Diego. So when it came time to release it this summer, it was much more of a celebration. It was almost like a reminder of, like, hey, look at this cool thing you made. Like, now everybody gets to see it. Like, and that's honestly how the whole summer's felt. It's been a bit of a whirlwind of just people almost, it's a good problem to have. Like, almost like people knocking at the door of me, just like wanting to come in, just people being like, hey, this is really cool what you made. Like, let's talk about it. I'm like a little tired. I'm just like, oh, okay. Like, thank you. It's been a lot, but it's a nice problem to have. I'm aware of that.
Sure. And you could so one last thing I wanted to point out on this track too was you could also hear the production
Please.
quality going through, like, getting better than previous releases. I really liked how you have like the slowed down acoustic part in the middle.
Thank you.
And you dip into that. I won't say it on some of the other songs. We'll probably, like, exponentially go faster through them, but like,
Yeah, sure.
you do that in a few other songs as well, where it's like ending on this acoustic part, and I thought that was really cool production choice.
Thank you, man. I'm definitely more confident in my lyricism and in just my ability as a songwriter as opposed to as an instrumentalist. I don't think I'm great at any particular instrument, but I can do enough of each one to track it for my own stuff. But I do occasionally, because I've been playing instruments for most of my life, I do occasionally like to flex my muscles instrumentally and just like have a section of the song where it's not focused on the lyrics and it's just like, just doing fun musical stuff. And I'd say the bridge of the fleeting moment in that acoustic part is a musical thing that I'm proud of, which are less than the lyrical things that I'm proud of. So that's special for me, for sure.
Yeah, totally. And you notice it on the album. All these little things make it's a really good album. And it's something else cool. I love, like, all of the little lines that I end up remembering from each song. It's actually been pretty easy for me to remember this album because I'm like, oh yeah, this fleeting moment.
That is great.
That's the one where it's like, that's something that I'd forever chase, right? Like, you have these little things that just stick out in my head. The Mad Max, we could move to that, right?
I love that.
And you did that. This is a perfect segue, right? Because you took that one tag and you put it in the beginning, which was also a cool production choice.
Yes. That was definitely a production choice. Like, I wouldn't have done that without the influence of AC and Max. They were like, I don't know which one of them said it, but they were like, what if we bring this back? Like, and that was not I don't play synth at home, so that wasn't like a line that was written beforehand. Like that was done in the studio. So yeah, Mad Max is another older song. I wrote that basically as soon as I plopped down in college. I actually released a demo of it like a month into college, and I made like a little montage of our first tour. And it's just because I missed the tour so much, I missed my band so much. So it's just so you can actually find the early acoustic demo of Mad Max with that video. But that song, I don't know. I've a soft spot for that song. It was like the first full band single that we released from the album. It was single number two, and the first single was very acoustic. So Mad Max was kind of the first time anybody got to hear, I think, the full fledged production of the album. And I was really going. Sometimes I like to do this as like a student of pop music. If there's one thing that like I think my brain can make sense of, it's music and like the songwriting process and the mechanics of it. So sometimes to challenge myself, I still put emotion into it, but I really try to challenge myself to just write a catchy pop song and to write something that will like this plus this equals hook. Like this will work. Like I'm not good at math. I'm not good at that type of stuff in real life. So I like to look at something like music in those terms sometimes. So Mad Max was an example of that. It was like, let's write kind of an upbeat song with sadder lyrics. Like, let's put these components together and try to get this. And I'm pretty happy with the result. I enjoy that one.
Yeah, me too. And yeah, for that one too, it has the fulfilling promises, taking the bomb and then blowing it out part, but then it also has the whoa, my darling. Like you have the hooks. You're good at writing these hooks that you can navigate your songs pretty well. Putting down the bomb. Yeah. This one, in contrast, I really liked the line, like the one verse in there where you were like, my friends think that where you went wrong. If we all had a bong, I'm sure we'd all get along. But you'd rather be outside playing beer pong. That line is great. I think that's really cool.
Thank you. Because part of me is self-conscious about that. Part of me thinks like, because in the world where I wrote that line, like it's sometimes I look back on college and it's such a weird fake little world. I've visited some friends in college since I've left, and it's been a similar experience. Just just interesting for me. And it's funny because a line like that to me sounds almost immature. Like if we all had a bong, we'd get along, but you'd rather be outside playing beer pong. But like in my head, I almost defend it to nobody's attacked me for it, but I just find myself defending it. Like, no, if you had been in that world, you would have seen like how seriously people take beer pong and how seriously, like college was such a weird time in that sense. And Putting Down the Bong is a song that people, like certain friends of mine and certain people online, have connected with really, really well, and that it means a lot to me. We played that one at our album release show, I think for the first time, and the reception was just ridiculous. Like for a song that new, just people were going nuts and singing the words. And there also is like a refrain at the end of just one line, so I guess it's easy for people to learn that refrain. But that song, just if it didn't beforehand, it does have a special place in my heart because I don't know, some people have told me that it means a lot to them, and that means a lot to me in turn. So
sure. And I mean, I think as musicians, perhaps like I relate to that for sure. Like that, when I hear that line, I see my own version of the freshman alcoholic, right? And I just remember being at frat parties and like wanting to just hang out upstairs and smoke weed, and then smoking too much weed and wanting to go home and play guitar. But my friends were just like downstairs playing beer pong. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? We're upstairs talking about space and time and like Sun Ra and shit. And like, how is this worse? Like so societally, it's a little different now, but back then, that's why I relate to that for sure.
I love hearing that because like it really is kind of two different types of people. And that's kind of the point of the line. Like, hey, if we were in this space, like this nice chill space of all of us having a bong, like we would all be getting along great, but you and I aren't relating. You would rather be outside at the party and I would rather be in here. We're not relating. And just last thing I'll say about this song is I had two roommates in San Diego. I put myself in a triple just to force myself to be social. One of them was an absolutely horrible person. I have no problem saying that. He's now like awaiting trial for a homophobic hate crime. Horrible man. Another of whom was a great guy who I visited. His name is Tanner. Still a very good friend of mine. And Tanner, within my first few days there, I was just playing the riff for Putting Down the Bong, just like noodling around with it. And he said those words. Like he said, dude, if we all had a bong, then I'm sure we would get along. And I was like, hey, I like kind of trying to impress him. I was like, hey, I could put that into a song. He was like, sure. And I was like, no, do you dare me to? Because I will. He was like, okay. And I was like, okay, challenge accepted. So actually the song, I had the riff, but like the motivation for writing that song came from that line. I was like, let me build something around this. Let me
That's
prove to
great.
him that I can do this.
That's
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah.
Um,
Thanks, man.
your sideways smile.
That
Uh,
one,
go ahead.
yeah. I'd say that one's kind of like a bright poppy, almost like 80s rock song. Like it kind of slows down for the chorus. The chorus almost has like stalker-ish lyrics, like you and me were meant to be together. It's all gonna fade away. Like I was a little nervous people might be creeped out by those lyrics, but I think people just enjoy them instead. And yeah, I don't I yeah,
Yeah,
I
no,
don't
I
have a whole
like
lot
this
to say about
song. I like the chromatic parts in there, and it has a big build up, which I appreciate. And then you got
it. Yeah.
so you have another piece. So in this album, you guys did a really good job. I don't know if it was you, AC, Max, combination of you all, but you made it feel like you can break the what is it, breaking the third wall or whatever. Like you kind of come
Oh
out of
yeah.
character for a second, right? And on here you do that. You're like, hey, wait, did I sing this part? But you guys did
Yeah,
it in
yeah.
like not a cheesy way. And I
Thank you.
appreciate
I
those little
appreciate that.
elements coming in. And then also in a not cheesy way, I love this follow me on Twitter thing you did at the end.
Thank
That's
you.
great.
It's I have an older brother who he and I value his opinion a lot, but he's not a fan of silly stuff like that. So like little thing like I remember showing him that song and him just being like, "Oh man, you really did that?" Like and then when the follow me on Twitters came, he was just like, "Dude, what are you doing?" Like but yeah, I don't know. I enjoy watching people who don't appear like they're taking themselves too seriously. I can say that for a fact. Like I see that in music, especially like when I see bands that just look like they're having more fun than they are stressing out about it. So I like to do that myself. I like to put up that front myself. So I like putting silly stuff like that in lyrics. And the follow me on Twitter thing, I'd had that idea since I was like freaking 13 years old. Like I just had the idea of just like yelling into him like follow me on Twitter. Like so that's I'm happy I manifested that. Happy
No,
that
I
got in
like
there
it. I
for
think
sure.
it's fun. It's over the top for sure, but it it
Yeah.
it has a good place on the album there.
Thank you.
Especially next to Boys, which I think is one of the strongest songs on the album. That's probably my favorite.
Thank you, man.
Yeah,
I
you
appreciate
want
that
to
a
talk
lot.
about that
I
one?
have some yeah. That one when I was in San Diego, I wrote for a newspaper, a satirical newspaper. It was kind of my outlet creatively. It was like very explicit, very punk rock, like "What's up, motherfuckers?" type of newspaper. It was called the Koala. Shout out the Koala. And I was a member of the Koala. It was like a big initiation process. It was kind of like my frat, but it was for a creative thing, so I really enjoyed it. But I was one of two he, him people there. Everybody else used they, them pronouns or some variation of that. And that's not something I fully realized until like we were playing a drinking game in the second semester and it was like take a shot for every non-binary person here and then everybody got wasted and I was like wait a second, this is crazy. Like so that song was actually kind of written from a fantasizing about playing for all those people type of thing. Like I had this idea of what if I just brought my acoustic guitar to a party and like they just all listened to these songs. They would like I'm already friends with these people, but they would I don't know, they would think I was so cool if they could hear me write this song. So that was the lyric of boys and girls. Most of my friends are in between. You've got boys and girls and me. That was very much written from the perspective of just looking around, just being surrounded by amazing non-binary people. So yeah,
Cool.
that's where that song comes from.
Yeah, and I was wondering that. I'm glad you shared that because I wanted to know kind of the backstory to it. I think the thing that appealed to me from this song was the production and the songwriting, and I really liked. And I can't control this, right? I'm just like speaking through. I'll tell you the parts that I thought were didn't excite me as much in the album, but
Yeah, yeah,
usually the beginning actually because I listened to it like on repeat for a while. Usually the first songs I get
dude.
more familiar with. This one was one of the
Okay.
first ones where I like pulled it up to the top of my playlist. I'm like, all right, I know that one
Dude,
now. It's a good one. And then I start skipping it because I got to get through everything. But I really loved
sure, yeah.
how you introduced the second verse. I just that always got stuck in my head. The like I said, her name was Ryan.
Her name, yeah, yeah, like kind of going into like a
Like
storyteller
yeah,
type of
like
thing,
that's
like
where
yeah,
I meant
connecting it to the first
almost
verse.
with the journaling. Like yeah, that was a good good
Yeah.
lyricist sort of flex on that one.
Ah,
Um,
I see what you mean. Yeah, with the journaling. Yeah, because it's almost like starting a conversation with the same person you were talking to in the first verse. It's like, hey, so like I said, her name is Ryan. Like, yeah,
mhm.
that's cool. I really like
Yeah.
that, man.
And
Thank you.
I was a big Interpol fan as a kid, and I get a strong Interpol
Yes,
vibe from this song. I think I figured it
I'm a
out
big.
after a while. I was like, why do I like this one the most? And I'm like, oh, it's very big, like an Interpol style song.
That is cool. I love Interpol. I love Joy Division as well. Like I'm a big, yeah, just like kind of that type of stuff for sure.
All right, then the title track, we got Freshman Alcoholic.
Yeah, yeah.
Shit gets
Title
cold in
track
San
is
Diego.
yes, yeah. That one I wrote on the parking garage. Like that, there's an early demo of that song that was recorded on my phone at the parking garage, and you can kind of hear like this ambulance siren go off, and like I almost wanted to put that in the recording because it worked so well. And maybe I'll release the demo someday because I think sometimes the demo actually has a vibey aspect to it, recording wise. And I always liked the idea of slightly bothering people with music. Like I love playing in restaurants where nobody actually wants to listen to you play. I loved playing my guitar in the parking garage while there were dorms like nearby and just people. I love the idea of people getting sick of it. Just like, oh my god, he has to track that part again. Like just get it, dude, just get it. So that one, I just have fond memories of. Like I wasn't sad in my dorm room for that one. I was actually sad and outside and probably not cripplingly sad yet. Like I was still putting it to music in a productive way. And I sent that one to my brother actually, kind of right after I wrote it. And he said something that still stuck with me to this day because I had been on the phone with him the previous day, kind of telling him about all my problems and, you know, just being sad and stuff. And then I wrote the song kind of about those specific problems and then sent him that song. And he was impressed. He was like, dude, you were just talking to me about this stuff. And now it rhymes and it's stuck in my head. Like, I can't do that. That's cool that you can do that. And like, I don't know. I guess, yeah, that still makes my heart feel good that my brother said that. So if there's any reason I like that song, it's for that. You know?
It's really cool. Yeah, I like this song. I don't listen to it as much as the other ones. But I think because it's the title track for the album and you did such a good job of building this character that I'm just kind of like, yeah, I get that one.
Yeah, dude, I appreciate it. Yeah. It's a shorter one too, just verse, chorus, verse, chorus. It's short.
Yeah. And same with Wasted. I don't listen to that one as much.
Yeah.
Yeah. But pre-tell. What's up with Wasted?
Wasted was another one that took a long time. I actually like there were early parts of that song that predate the Freshman Alcoholic, like predate me ever viewing alcohol as a bad thing. I like yeah, like like the first verse is pretty genuine, just like almost like a kid talking about the idea of being wasted, like wasted on the run. It always seemed like so much fun, like just like idealizing it. And then the second verse, I flushed out the song, kind of like Daylight, a bit later on. Once I knew I was going for this theme and this topic, the second verse is much more like realistic, just like wasted, but on my own, finally reaping the rewards of these seeds I've sown. So yeah, and then we kind of end it with a acoustic outro. That's a song. Yeah, I'm pretty proud of that.
I like the outro on that one. I have that in my notes for
Thank
sure. The acoustic outro. And was this one so are you talking to yourself in this song or are you talking to someone else? It has that play on it too, which I thought was cool too, right? Do you change? I think you change it between me and you, which was also pretty cool.
I probably do, yeah. I would say I'm definitely talking to myself in that song. Yeah, like almost from the perspective of somebody else. Like in the first verse when I say like you've clearly shit all over the floor, that is definitely talking to myself. like if my favorite lyric in the song is in the second verse, realizing how self-indulgent this whole thing is of me, just like my favorite lyric. But the one that
no, that's
am
why
most
we're
proud
here.
of in the second
Go.
Thanks, man. The one that I'm most proud of in the second verse is isn't it funny how ugly love can look from the outside? And I like that one because it has nothing to do with the actual album. I wrote that lyric in my head at a party in my senior year of high school when I had a slight crush on this girl, and then she was dating this jock who like. I don't know. I had no reason to dislike this jock, but I was very much like, oh, she's with the jock, and like, you know. And I just remember seeing them at a party, like just kind of, you know, being together, and just kind of standing there, and that thought genuinely came to my mind. Just like,
oh wow,
it's kind of funny how it's kind of funny how ugly this looks to me when in reality this is a beautiful thing. These are two people really enjoying each other, but it's funny how ugly from the outside it looks. Like to me, it just this sucks, but to them, that's a beautiful thing. You know?
Sure. Yeah, I like that. That is very true too. I hadn't thought about that before.
Yeah. It's actually a nice just segue to talk to just mention it real quick. The next album is
Yeah.
going to be called Unrequited because it's just unrequited love. Like, so yeah, that's a theme that I stay on a good amount.
Talk about the next album a little bit. Let's take a little hiatus. We could fly through the other ones. I know I don't have anywhere to go, but so I don't mind sitting here and
Me
talking.
neither,
So,
honestly.
yeah, talk
I'm
about
chilling,
the
Rich.
new album.
Yeah.
Yeah, do it.
Sure. I mean, it's going to be 14 songs, so less than The Freshman Alcoholic, thankfully. And yeah, we kind of just started the process of it. Me and AC are going to be working with the person who mastered The Freshman Alcoholic. His name is Skylar Ross. He's mastered records for people like Lake Effect. He's mastered AC's newest album. It's going to be an album called Rosie, which is very cool. But I did a session with him at his basement studio a few weeks ago, and it went pretty well. And yeah, it's just I didn't have any immediate plans for the second album when the album was coming out, but after all the excitement of The Freshman Alcoholic, I kind of have a drive to just prove to people that I could do it again and maybe do it under a context that isn't life threatening. You know, like I can just make a normal album. So I'm just personally very excited to get back into the studio. That one session I did with Skylar really just like spruced up my Joneses again just for recording. I was just like, this is so much fun. I haven't done this in a while. And I do have more songs. So yeah, there's not a whole lot to say other than that. I just knew we were talking about just unrequited stuff, and I like the title for that regard. At one point at San Diego, I would sometimes go through these like drinking binges where I would just like go for like days sometimes, and I would wake up and find like weird cryptic messages written on my phone. And one of the messages I woke up to after a binge once was because I was 19 years old at the time. It was 19 years, only unrequited love equals total depression. So like at one point I was just, you know, just thinking like, I've never had an experience where I felt that way for someone and they've returned it. So like, I do like that word, and I'm excited for that to sort of be it won't be as much of a concept album as The Freshman Alcoholic, but for that to sort of be the pervading theme. I'm excited about that.
I commend your ability to use all of this stuff in a positive way, by the way. I think it's pretty cool.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, that's a cool
means
concept. And Monopoly. So I love Monopoly. That's a really great song. You talked about the soccer already, right?
Yeah, we did. That's funny. That's nice that you like it. Thank you. That's another one that I actually posted a demo of it while I was in San Diego. I wrote that, like, that one was not started beforehand. I was fully done in San Diego. And yeah, like, I was in a good enough headspace to post it still. So I guess I hadn't fully gone down the tubes yet, but I was definitely getting there, like, based on the lyrics. It's a pretty bleak song. But it was one of those songs where I just started with the hook, like the chorus. That's why the song starts with the chorus. And I just thought, I can build off of this. Like, this is something. I quit the soccer team when I was 11 years old, and I've been going downhill from there. Like, just that was enough of like a launch pad. And I had some friends that actually connected with it just from the demo. So I actually had a bit of support for that song going into the album, just like Mad Max. Like, I had a few friends when we recorded Mad Max, they were like, oh, it's the Mad Max session? Cool. Like, so it's nice when there's songs that have supporters before they're even recorded. So Monopoly was one of those. I have a few friends that were very excited when it came out, so that meant a lot. It took a long time to get the vocals on that. I'll say that. Like, we did the tracking for it, and then I tried to do the vocals, and just for whatever reason, I was in my head about it, so I had to come back at a later date and redo those vocals.
Oh, interesting. How do you prepare for that? Do you sit at home and like practice?
I kind of don't, to be honest. Like, especially in last summer when I was recording the album, I was working as a singing counselor at a day camp. Like, the day camp that I still work at to this day, I'm not the singing counselor anymore. But at the time, groups of kids would come to me like in half-hour periods, and I would be Mr. Aidan, and I would be teaching them songs like "There was a great big moose," it's great big, like, and I'd be doing that in the hot sun all day. And then sometimes I would go straight from that to recording with Max. So I think the Monopoly session was just one of those days where I'd blown my voice out and just couldn't do the vocals.
Gotcha. Old stories.
Yes.
I like this one.
That, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, 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 I
Yeah, that
do.
one, I guess a bit simpler. Yeah, I had the chorus for a little bit. The pinch me if I'm dreaming, because seems like this is feeling better than the other ones. A bit of a broad lyric, just about having initial feelings for someone and like kind of falling into that with someone, and just having those initial wary feelings based on past experiences of like, wait a second, like stop me because like I feel like I'm getting ahead of myself because this is actually feeling better than it did before. So like if there's something that's going to go wrong, like just let's talk about that real quick because this is feeling dangerously good type of thing. And yeah, I don't know. Like I've that's a pretty positive song, even lyrically. I'd say there's not a lot of depression coming out of that one, which is nice. Might break up the album off.
I think that's why I liked it there too. That's I
Yeah,
don't even have that many notes. I just remember the name. I'm like, I
thanks,
remember
man.
I
I
like
also
this song.
I also love onomatopoeia. As silly as it sounds, I really love songs that have bop bahs and dot dahs and stuff like. I'm a big Beach Boys fan, so I love the bop bop bada bada bop bahs in that song. I'm happy
Hmm.
about those.
Me too. And again, like I think it helps me kind of, especially since I'm like trying to like understand an artist typically in a couple of weeks. I'm a little bit of a weird
Mhm.
listener, right? But like those help
Yeah,
me, right? Because I'm just like, oh yeah, I remember this. Like now I don't
yeah,
have to,
I guess it.
Um, June by the
I get that.
Water. This is a pretty cool song. I actually didn't listen to it as much as some of the other ones. It didn't have as much replayability, but when I went back and listened to it, when I like wrote these notes, it's like this is actually a really cool song. I almost think it's similar to the Freshman Alcoholic, but it's the one that I prefer to listen to. Um,
Thank you. I
yeah.
I would say as weird as it sounds, like if there's a favorite on the album, June by the Water is either the favorite or it's fighting for the spot. Because that song, yeah, I remember the root of it very well. I was home for winter break and there's this nice hiking spot in Montclair near me called Eagle Rock, which has a really nice reservation at the top of it where you can have a beautiful view of the city and there's a nice restaurant. And for whatever reason, I was eating at this nice restaurant with my father and my brother and just looking out the window. And I liked the waitress. Like the waitress I thought was cute. And I was like, oh, I'm in such a embarrassing position. I'm with my dad, my brother. Like I'm an adult, but I look like a kid. And then I was looking out at the city and just like that first verse kind of wrote itself. Just like your hair fell over your face, you had a black shirt on. I looked out into the city and I realized it's been 6 months since I've been gone. And just I started thinking about my friends. Like you would definitely tell me if I had come back a California asshole. Like I was thinking, like, did I come back a California asshole? No, you would tell me. And then I just started thinking about the ridiculous things in California, like avocado toast and people being genuinely confused when it's raining. Just like it's insane. Like so, I really do love that first verse because it's very, very real. Like I'd like to think most of my lyrics are, but I can really plop down and remember being in that space. And the chorus lyrics are kind of relating to the koala, that club that I was talking about, because the initiation process was a bit grueling. Like, not everybody could be accepted into this newspaper to be a writer or to be an artist. So, out of like the 40 recruits, I was one of, I think, 12 that got accepted. I'm still very proud of that. But there was a lot of anxiety at the time going into it. So, the chorus actually isn't written about being kicked out of like a nightclub or something, even though I love that connotation. It was written about anxiety of like, man, if I didn't know any better, like they're talking about kicking me out right now. Like I'm about to be kicked out and like, eesh, like that happens, that's going to shatter my confidence, stuff like that. So lyrically, I've fond feelings for that song. And then in the second half, we kind of go in some cool musical directions that I guess similarly to like the verse or to the bridge of Fleeting Moment, where I'd say I sort of flex my muscles musically. I got to do that on June by the Water too. Got to try out some cool stuff, go to some cool places that we hadn't explored a whole lot. My old boss from Cool Cat, Ken, he guested on trumpet at the very end of the song, which is a special thing for me. So yeah, that song. I'm just repeating myself. I've said this about every song, but that song has a special place in my heart. I do like June by the Water.
Well, of course, these all have a special place in the heart, in your heart, though. You wrote them, right? Like, I don't think
Yeah,
it's,
fair.
um, but yeah, June by the Water is cool. Now I want to go back and listen to it more because I feel like I skipped it too many times. I definitely listened to it like a lot, but not as much as the other ones.
Yeah.
But I did really feel like it kind of helped me I listened to it early on, and it helped me unlock kind of like the vibe and like the feeling of the album. And I did like that it was, unlike Freshman Alcoholic, it was kind of like a past tense type of thing, which helped me kind of frame that all of these songs were happening.
That's cool.
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
liked that,
Yeah.
and I did note, actually, for this one, I noted that one of the production and songwriting choices that you all made on this album that I think is a good move is you kind of would put, instead of having a bridge, you would have these like outro parts that had a hook, and a
Yeah.
build
Yeah.
up, and I think that's really effective. I would keep doing that, by the way. That's like a thing you do.
I That is a great piece of feedback because sometime with that song in particular, I worried that we were taking people through too many turns, like that people would just get a little like, just as people were getting comfortable in this part, it's like, oh, we're going into this next part. Like, oh man, like, I'm happy to hear that
No, I
because I was
like it.
happy
It's
with
like
how
an
it came
Abbey
out too.
Road type of thing. Like, like it gives you like
Yeah,
these two parts to the song, and those typically have like a
yeah,
build up. I think you did it
yeah.
in, um I don't know. Well, we'll see. You
Probably. I
didn't do it in
think
Hey
in the
There,
bar.
Roslyn, but I was gonna say I thought you did it in the
No,
next one, but you didn't.
kind of did.
Probably.
We go into Yeah, yeah, yeah. We go into some weird spaces in Hey There, Roslyn. Also putting down the bong, do a similar thing. But yeah,
Hmm.
thank you, man. I love build ups. I love going into new places. Yeah, it's cool. If I have two choruses for a song, I'm not likely to throw away one of the choruses. I'm likely to just find a different spot for it, I'd say. Which
I like
is, I'd
that.
say, the case for June by the Water.
That's I like that little, what you just said. I'm gonna keep that in mind when I'm writing songs from now on.
Thank you.
Like if there's two different choruses,
Dang.
yeah, why
Hi.
throw them away? Just like
No,
tag it at the end. Um,
find another place for it. Yeah, that's cool.
Hey There, Roslyn. This one, the live performance that I watched, it was like very well received. Is this a big live song for you all,
Thank you.
or was that just that one
Yeah, I
time?
don't know which one you watched. I guess so. Yeah, no, I'd say it goes pretty well live. I really enjoy it. We live do like a three-way transition between the songs of the radio into a song called Killer into Hey There Roslyn, which isn't the way it goes in the album. Hey There Roslyn comes before those previous two songs, but I enjoy doing it live. I really love starting Hey There Roslyn like with some feedback behind me with the cymbals ringing out, and I just get to go into the first verse. And I from the first time we did it live, which was back in March, I really loved the effect of just almost like shutting people up. Like even if they don't like it, like they are gonna, just for politeness sake, they're gonna quiet down a bit to hear this person. And I feel like it gives the words a bit more of a chance to be heard because in a lot of, as you know, in a lot of these local venues, sometimes the vocals are unintelligible. So just that first verse, at least I know the words are going to be heard. And yes, I actually genuinely really do enjoy playing that song live. We have had a few times, especially there was one Meat Locker show where the crowd was singing along to the words and the song hadn't come out yet. Like we had released a live session that the song was on, so I guess people had watched that. And it's also a song that you can just start to sing along to halfway through, just like, hey there, Roslyn. Like, yeah, that's an easy hook to remember. So it could have been a case of that as well. But that's been a really fun live song. That is a song I'm quite proud of. Roslyn is a recurring character throughout the album. Uh, Actually, like I'm allowed to talk about this, actually based on a friend of mine from the Koala named Roslyn, who I had some feelings for, and then they ended up dating my best friend within the Koala. His name is Will. We were all writers, and like yeah, like I had some really hurt feelings over that at the time. And when I visited San Diego, I saw them and made sure they were cool with me using the name and stuff. They actually took the album cover photo. Like Rosalind, my friend, who the character is based on, is the person behind the camera for the album cover photo, which
Wow.
is a fun fact I'd love to say. Yeah. So yeah, Hey There, Rosalind was very much me in my dorm room. I would watch like the Koala would meet on Thursday nights for a little bit of context, and like that would be like my party every week. That would be my social function. Like that's where I would feel accepted. But then Fridays and Saturdays, I really had nothing and no one, and I ended up resorting to just drinking in my room. And a lot of times I would see like, my friends going out on dates or my friends going out to parties and stuff on Fridays and Saturdays. And Hey There, Roslyn was definitely an example of on one of those days, me just kind of writing this song, fantasizing about sending it to them. Like, oh, I'm watching them have fun at this party. yeah, I'm alone in my dorm room. That must mean I'm a loser. What's one way I could maybe spin it so I'm not a loser? Oh, I could write this love song. You know, maybe that kind of like, at least in my head, I could spin it in a slightly artistic way. So, and I don't know how it came so easily, but the hook for that song really came pretty naturally. Just the it is, and as soon as I had it, I kind of thought like, oh, this could be like Foster the People or Two Door Cinema Club. Like this could be like I could see this at a festival, like getting people going. Like this could be like a DJ
Yeah.
thing. So like I just like knew that AAA had a bit of potential. So even before the idea for the Freshman Alcoholic as an album, I was sending people that song. I was really excited about it. I was telling people this is my Hey There Delilah, shit like that. So that's yeah. And I'm also really happy with the album cover that we put for the single, which is because I was able to even find another aesthetic for the song, which is the babysitter in the comic strip Calvin and Hobbes, who's named Rosalind.
Yeah.
And I was able to like have a friend of mine recreate a comic strip with Rosalind with Calvin, and just attach a whole different aesthetic to it that I love as well. So
Yeah, I thought that was cool. I was wondering, I was like, I was trying to look it up.
nice
And then, yeah, that's cool.
one. Yeah,
Um,
nice one. Yeah.
I love that festival line. You know, growing up, another one of my favorite bands was the Kings of Leon. Right. So all of those bands came out like my freshman year of college, of high school rather.
Mm.
Though, like, I think a lot of them, their sophomore album was coming out. So it was like,
Wait, talking like Two Door Cinema Club and Foster the People, stuff like that?
no, I'm talking about, did I not say the band? Sorry.
No, Kings of Leon? Yeah,
Oh, I
yeah.
did. Okay, yeah. So, like,
Yes.
I never got too into Two Door Cinema Club or Foster the People, actually, but I was into,
That's
like,
cool.
Interpol, The Strokes, Kings of Leon, The Killers.
Nice.
Well, Hot Fuss has come out
Yeah.
later. That was, like, that they were on their freshman album when The Strokes were on their sophomore.
No.
But all that had come out, like, my freshman year of high school, and I got into it. And then I remember seeing the Kings of Leon at a festival before they had the album with Use Somebody on it, when they were still cool, you know?
Yeah.
And I had listened to them from their first album, which was like very country, like garage rock, through their first
Yeah.
4 albums. And I didn't really jive with the later, especially the 4th one. And I remember seeing them at the festival and it clicking, me being like, holy shit, I get it now.
Mm.
Like they're playing at these
Gotcha.
festivals instead of at like the fucking Meat Locker where like, you know, you want to be
Yeah.
playing these blues. Now
Yeah.
you're going to like let this thing ring out. And I remember
Mm.
even the song on the sophomore album that I'd really often skipped, Milk, was
Okay.
at the festival when they played it. I was like, damn, all right, I get this now. And
It made sense. Yeah.
yeah, it made sense to me. And then I started to understand this, like there's a difference between playing a club, like a song in a club and a song at a festival. And
Totally. Yeah.
I could totally hear Hey There Rosalind doing well in both, but I could hear what you mean by like at a festival. I think
Thank
it
you.
would like playing it out to like, you know, the air
Yeah.
would be pretty cool.
Yeah. Thank you, man. I think there's a lot of smaller artists that if they just got it's an unrealistic reality, but it's like if a lot of smaller artists just got plopped down on a festival stage like that, they would prove a lot of people like that they could do it. You know, there's so many
sure.
local bands that I could think of it's like just all we can do is hope to get that chance, you know, and work towards it.
That's what sucks about Warped Tour being gone, and I get that like perhaps you know, this style of music might be flirting the line with being appropriate for Warped Tour or not. You know, like I don't know if it would fit, but
I know what
it
you mean.
might. It might.
Yeah.
But I really liked that they had like the local stage at that.
Yeah.
Like it's.
I never got to go to Warped Tour. I have some friends
I didn't
that did.
either, but
like,
I just know they had the stage.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I know Title Fight played there super early on. Same with Paramore. Like, and that's where a lot of my roots are in like pop punk, like Green Day, Blink-182, Sum 41. So yeah, I would have loved it.
Same. I just never went. I went to Bamboozle a couple times, but not Warped Tour.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Cool. So the movie theater. You want to talk about that one?
Yeah. Sure. That one, I'd say I put it purposely next to Hey There Rosalind because it's another Rosalind inspired song. She or my friend worked at the movie theater at the time. So that was very much me writing a story about what I wished I was doing. Like I was not nearly cool enough in San Diego to drive to the movie theater and to profess my love or anything like that, but it was sort of a fantasy of doing something like that. And I'd like to think I wrote a good story around it. That's a song where I tried to sort of paint a picture with some of the words, and I'm pretty happy with how it came out. Like I see that as a sister song to Hey There, We're Awesome. So
Cool. I hadn't picked up on that, but it adds a lot to it. And I think that this is one of the more well-written lyrical songs. I really liked like the story it told.
Thank you.
The one question I have for it is, what was the traveling circus that you grew up with?
So the traveling circus is a reference to another thing that I did a lot of reflection on in San Diego. Negative reflection in the sense of not in the sense of how did this make me who I am? How did this thing mess me up? And this thing being School of Rock, which is a program that I met AC in. It's where I met a lot of people that I still work with. Actually, my drummer Sal, he went to a different School of Rock, so that's how we met. Yeah, a lot of people who I've met have been through that program. But I'd say from 10 to 14, right before I started playing drums in bands locally, I lived and died for that place. Like I would do performance programs there, which meant like I'd be there once a week rehearsing for a show. I would take lessons there. I was part of the house band, which would also meet once a week, and you would travel around and do shows. Like it's how me and AC first got really close. He was a guitar player in the house band. I was a bassist in the house band. And I did that for about 2 years. I was just all in for that school. And then by the time college rolled around, I did some reflection on it. Like I love it, but it almost gave me this false idea that there would always be like-minded people around me. Like I was surrounded by kids my age who was like, there's Amelia who plays guitar. There's Spencer who plays bass. There's so-and-so who's good at funk. There's so-and-so who's good at punk. Like, and subconsciously, I guess I started to think that that's just how life was. And even though I'd been removed from it for a lot of years, by the time college rolled around, I had still been playing music locally at shows, and now I wasn't playing music at all. And I just started thinking about that time. I was like, I played Uptown Funk on a parade float when I was 12. That's not normal. Like I can't, like nobody here can relate to that. Like I can't, and that was a bit of a scary feeling. Like I can't talk about that to anybody. Like, and I started kind of going through my phone, like where are all the old gang? Like where's the old School of Rock people? And it's like, oh, this person went to college and just left music behind. This person does this now. It's like, you left music behind? I didn't think any of us could do that. And then I would think about myself, like, well, you sort of did that. Like, look at what you're doing. And I had a few phone calls with just old friends from School of Rock where we would talk about it. And yeah, so I guess from a bit of a negative place, I was just talking about the circus in that sense. You know?
Cool. I wouldn't have guessed that at all. And I heard you mention that on another podcast, and I didn't even like put them together. So I'm glad to hear that.
Thanks, man.
Practical Way of Life. Before you talk about this one, I want to shout out to your drummer. I forget his name. You said it before, but this is my favorite. Sal. This is my favorite moment of Sal's on the whole album. Well, he does great on the whole thing.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I play all the instruments on the album.
You play
like all the drums.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, shout out to you on this then. So this is my favorite drumming moment on the album, I think.
Thank you so much. It's very consistent. Like I just kind of stayed with one beat for most of it. I think Max and AC also got a really good drum sound on that song too, I would say. But yeah, that song was, there's a great local band that sadly doesn't play anymore. They're called Shinner, Shinner. It was a 2-piece band that when I was 16, I would equate it to like people talk about seeing the Ramones for the first time and just seeing the simplicity of it and going, oh, I could do that. Like, and just like having a real primal connection to that. That's what I had with this band Shinner. They were just vocals and guitar and then a drummer, and they just had this really tight sound. And they had like kind of this garage rocky, surfy, simple sound that I tried to emulate with Practical Way of Life. So I almost wanted to give them a songwriting credit for that song because it would not exist without them. Like, big shout out to Shinner. Anybody who likes that song should check out their catalog. And it's kind of a black sheep on the album. Like, there's no other song that musically sounds like that. It doesn't really musically fit with the rest of the album. It lyrically definitely does. That's why I can justify it being there. And it was definitely part of the Freshman Alcoholic writing sessions. Like, I wrote that song probably from like the most debaucherous place. Like, I like that the music is very party-esque, and then the lyrics are also very party-esque, but in a dark way. Kind of like, we're not getting like, we're not going to get too far if we keep going this way. Like I'm talking to myself very much in that lyric, like very much like in a drinking binge in the parking garage. It's all very literal. Just like, man, like we are not going to make it much further than this. Like if you wanted it to end in freshman year of college, keep going the way you're going because we're not going to make it too far if you can't see 2 inches in front of your eyes. Like, so it's kind of something like that. And we're actually going to start playing that one live soon. The band has been asking to learn that, which always makes me smile. The band hits me up and they're like, hey, we should play this one. I'm like, cool. I think Sal actually is excited to play that one on drums. So
yeah, even though it's simple. I mean, by the way, I mean, that's my first instrument that I played was drums. So for first 10
drums?
years, yeah. And it is simple, but like I think that it's the same in guitar sometimes too. Like to make something simple, you got to think through it, and the drums are really strong on that one for sure. And I thought it was
Thank
Sal,
you, man.
right? I mean, you did a great job.
Yeah, no.
That'll be a good live
Shout
one.
out. Yeah, if you come on Saturday, we'll probably be debuting it Saturday. But yeah, shout out Noah Chamberlain, the drummer of Shinner. Definitely was trying to emulate his style on that. Just I'll say real quick about him. He was badass. He's still alive. Like when he played in Shinner, he had a floor tom, a snare drum, and taped to the snare drum was a tambourine, and then he had a ride cymbal. No kick drum, no hi hat, no rack tom. It was very minimalistic, but badass, man. So badass.
That's really badass. I like that. I love that kind of thing. So as you mentioned, you know, this was a pretty dark song. I actually highlighted that I think this is one of the darker lyrics that I liked a lot on this album was where you said there's no point in owning a mirror because everything I do is to distort my view. So why'd I want to see myself clearer? It was like, damn,
yeah, like
that's dark, but I like it. You know,
actually,
like that's a good lyric.
Yeah, I mean, like when you're in that headspace, it's like out of anything that I want to see clear, myself is the last thing. Like, so that was probably because the really shitty roommate who's now like on trial, he insisted on buying like a big stand-up mirror for this dorm room. Like, and I was like, why? It's just going to break. It's just going to cause problems. And then like, as a result, during my drinking binges, I would just be at my desk drinking and I would look and all of a sudden I would see myself in the mirror. So I don't know if that was written directly after that, but it probably comes from that space, you know?
Yeah, that's interesting. You know, so one of the things I noticed when I moved to college was I had always had a mirror upstairs at home, like just in our, like outside of my room, just like in the hall, there was like a thing with a mirror. And that's where I would stand and play guitar. Right. And I noticed that I missed it. Like, actually, it wasn't at college. It was later on. It was when my wife and I had moved in together. And I was like, I need a mirror in my studio. I didn't even know. And
that's
I'm
interesting
moving right now. Like I've been moving. So this summer, like I've been kind of packed up and my mirror's gone. And I'm like, this is so freaking weird being in here without my mirror. Like when I'm playing guitar, it feels almost like I'm indulging only myself without the mirror being there because I can't like look, it doesn't feel like somebody else is there with me. It's very strange.
That's a really cool. No, I could relate to that. It's a really cool way of looking at it. Yeah, like I guess I've never thought about it, but yeah, when I pick up a bass and just like play along to songs or just play it, like I'd usually like to stand in front of a mirror, you know, try to look at it a bit. So yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I guess I could see my hands. You could see if you're like standing up straight enough or whatever. You check your posture. It's just something I grew like since I was like, it's a habit I developed when I was like 10 or whatever, you know, and I was like, you know, I think it's actually affecting me that I don't have a mirror in here.
That's
and
fair.
It definitely did. And now that it's gone, I'm like, no, when we move, I had to get rid of it. It was like an old bathroom mirror, like one of those like 80-pound ones. So I just threw it out, but I need to get a new one. But yeah, I could see that it's funny. It's like, it's like, you know, what's the point of owning the mirror? I liked that because I was listening to this without my mirror, by the way, here. And I'm like, that's cool.
I love that.
Yeah. The radio. So this is like the shortest one, most stripped down probably on the album.
Yeah.
But it's a nice,
so the radio was, I'd say this one is like almost more of like a half song. Like it kind of became developed more in the day, like in the studio on the day, because I kind of went in having the expectation that it would just be vocals and guitar. And then we added a little synth line to the start. We added some lead lines and then decided to really kind of commit with like, hey, let's bring in a kick drum halfway through. Let's bring in a bass. And like, I guess a little bit inspired, funny enough, by the artist Phoebe Bridgers. She did a live session on KEXP in Seattle a bunch of years ago, and one of her songs, "Smoke Signals," is kind of very just four on the floor kick drum, but like no real snare drum or anything like that. Like just very somber, almost like a funeral march. So I decided to go for that vibe. And when I first played my brother, I've mentioned him a few times. I play him a lot of my music before it comes out. And I first played him a lot of the rough mixes for the Freshman Alcoholic. And the radio is one of those songs that I was able to show him. And he's the one that gave me the idea, all credit to him. Hey, this almost sounds like a trailer, the album. Like it almost sounds like you're just touching on each little theme in the album. Like you're touching on the alcohol, you're touching on the depression, you're touching on the friend sleeping with the person that you like all of it. So like I feel like I know what the gist of the album is. So maybe this could be the first single. And I had not viewed it that way until he said that. And the radio actually did kind of well. It got like close to 10,000 streams when we put it out, and it kind of gave me all the way back in March. It gave me a nice inclination, like, oh, people might be receptive to this album. People like actually might enjoy it. So yeah, radio, and we've actually started playing that one live. It goes into Killer. It's a weird song to play live because it's a weird space to put people in a live setting, to put them in like that funeral march type of beat. It's not a danceable song, but I enjoy it. So yeah, credit to Max for that song because he added a lot for sure.
Nice. Yeah, I like that song, and I think it's really cool that you chose it as the first single too, because it is different than everything else. But like your brother said, it gives you a good overview. It kind of warms your palate to the rest of it, everything, especially Killer, which is funny because it's at the end of the album, but it's probably like, it's not my favorite song. I think my favorite song on the album that I listen to the most, like I said, is probably Boys, but I feel like Killer, if I'm going to show anyone your music, I'd show them Mad Max or Killer.
That's cool. Thanks, man. Yeah, I Killer, I'm fortunate enough where it placed on Spotify Fresh Finds Rock. It's actually
cool.
in its fifth week of being on that playlist, which is really cool. Yeah, and that song, it was the third single in between Mad Max and Hey There Roslyn. That was a song that I was showing people, anybody who would listen. Like I wrote that one in the first semester at San Diego, so I wasn't in the rough headspace yet. I'm talking about some dark stuff, so you can kind of tell I'm getting there, but I was still very much I want to make San Diego work for me. I want to prove to people that I can do this cool thing, which is songwriting. Like I was still very much in a not wallowing space, but let's prove something space. Like very big difference for me. So I remember coming home for like Thanksgiving break, like as early as that, and just showing that song to my bandmates, showing it to AC and just friends of mine, and just trying to. It's funny. I had a band rehearsal over Thanksgiving break where I just played my bandmates a bunch of songs, and I told them, I was like, yeah, I just kind of wanted to prove to you guys, like, make sure you knew I could still do this. And they were like, yeah, we didn't doubt it. Like, you've only been gone for 2 months. Like, what? Like, but I had a real urge to do that. And I remember occasionally I would play acoustic concerts in my dorm hall. Like on a few occasions, I would get drunk and confident enough to like go into the lounge area and just play for residents and stuff. And occasionally people would come to my room and play and listen. And I remember showing a few people Killer, just people being like, whoa, that's cool. Like I got some nice reception in the college area of that song before I recorded it. So
yeah, it's a strong song for that kind of thing, for sure. I like it. It's
for sure.
I think when I'm listening to it over and over again, I tend to just, because I'm a little different, right? Like I'll like pick these other songs for different reasons, but like I said, I think it's probably. I'm not surprised that of the ones you probably submitted to the playlist that one got on there, and it's good.
Yeah, thanks, man. I
hope
appreciate
it.
Yeah.
Stays on there. I don't even know how that works. I should know, but I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah. My mom, I had to answer the awkward question for my mom, who doesn't listen to my music much, but when she does, it means a lot. And she was like, who's the killer in this song? And I who are you talking to? I was like, Mom, I'm talking to alcohol, sort of,
yeah.
And I'm proud of the line a bit too, like the leave me with my teeth, because that's how you can identify something. It's pretty dark, but it's I like doing dark things with a little twist. That's my favorite thing.
Sure.
So,
and the body.
That we filmed a music video for that one actually, which is probably going to come out sometime in September. Yeah, I'm excited about that. That song, yeah, that one goes really deep. I
Yeah.
wrote that definitely towards the end of San Diego. The lyrics came last. I had that little chord progression for a long time. Probably going back to my senior year of high school, I had that chord progression, just the little repetitive thing. And I finally, and I also had the title too. I knew I wanted to call the song The Body. The original title for Stephen King's like movie Stand By Me, the book version is called The Body. So I've always
Mm.
really just liked that. Yeah. And so I guess I did sort of write the lyrics around the title, but it was also really reflective of how I was feeling at the time, which was just feeling lifeless, like just feeling like you're not the same person that you once were, like you can't be expected of the same things you were once capable of. Like I think that was kind of towards the end of my time in San Diego, and I was preparing for the inevitable return home, and I was having a lot of really horrible thoughts of I don't want to show people this version of myself. I don't want people to see this. I don't want people to remember me this way. Like it might be better to take myself out while I'm here before going home. Like I don't want to inflict myself on people like this. And there's a lot of like kind of vocalizing that in the song. Like what you once loved no longer occupies this body. And there's some reflection on some past relationships in that song. There's also like some just in the second verse, there's some like just trippy, like in the middle of a binge, just like barely even making sense lyrics. Like just because I remember some certain dreams that I had where like the second verse, like I can see things falling is kind of just talking about my life around me, and then almost imagining somebody responding to me, well, wait, what do you mean? All around us, things are growing and tearing by the seams, but that's just life. But then I kind of think, oh, well, now I see it snowing, so we must be inside a dream because I'm in San Diego, so I must be in some weird hazy thing because it's snowing. Uh, and then I just kind of think like, oh, I guess I don't dream as much as I used to because I never get to sleep and I'm just numbing myself with everything. And no matter how much stuff I numb myself with, no amount of weed is going to make me forget what I used to do with my ex. Nothing's going to make me forget the good times, you know? So I guess I'm pretty proud of those lyrics. Any lyrics that I can go through, like I just did, and kind of relive them a bit, they live with me a bit more because they're a bit more real in that sense. And then the body kind of took an unexpected turn in the recording where it just exploded into this solo at the end, which wasn't originally intended. But to me, like that guitar, it's a very simple solo, but also a lot of tremolo picking and kind of intense picking. So there's not a lot of notes, but I really hit those notes hard. And to me, it's almost like someone screaming, almost like it's very emotional. So yeah, like that song, because I don't know, I'm in such a better place. It was written from such a very dangerous place, that song in particular. So I'm proud of that one, sure.
I concur. I had as the strongest outro and solo on the album.
Thanks, man.
And I liked the lyrics on this probably more than anything else. Even though I
Anyway.
ended up listening to Boys more than anything else, I think that this one is the most songwriters song.
Oh
Is
yeah,
that, yeah. But
yeah,
it's the most poetic, right? And us even just calling it the body and then kind of unraveling it through the thing. Then the snow thing you mentioned, again back to Interpol. I always thought of I forget which song it is, but he's like, my friend is a butcher.
wait, I
He
think
has 16 knives. Oh look at stop snowing.
yeah,
I always thought of that.
yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah.
then okay, so with the stronger outro, one of the things I think that's really cool about what you did on this album here is I feel like the body to me actually almost ends the album. And
Yeah,
then
almost for
Turtle
sure.
Swimming in Static is almost reminds me of like a reprise or a hidden track
Huh,
type of vibe, and then you
I like that
start over again.
because yeah, the body definitely has the vibe of a big finisher. It's a big
Yeah.
like that out. It's a yes. So I see what you mean totally. Yeah, and then turtles swimming in static kind of creeps in there. You know,
Hmm.
starts off with like those little watery sound effects and yeah,
And it's
that's one I could.
reflective, right?
Yes, turtles swimming in static was a song that stems from. It's kind of the last Roslyn character song because my friend Roslyn had a radio show with another friend of ours, and I would listen to their radio show every week. And by the end of my time in San Diego, it was a tradition. It's so weird looking back on this as a tradition because my healthy tradition on Monday nights has always been band rehearsal. My band rehearses on Monday nights, but in San Diego, I would just drink along to this radio program every Monday night, and I would just like I just attached this horrible aesthetic to it, where I was like, I'm in love. I'm in love with someone who doesn't love me back, so I have an excuse for this. It's just a very unhealthy mindset. And at one point, there were some technical difficulties with one of their microphones on the radio show, and the friend of Rosalind said to them, they said, "You sound like turtles swimming in static." And I was just, even in my drunk headspace, if there's anything I love about myself, it's that I always stop to write something down if I think it's cool. And I had to stop it. I was like, that's something. Turtle swimming in static is something. So for a while, I just had that title, and it took me a little bit to connect the music with it. And I've told this to a few friends. Turtle swimming in static is probably the most dangerous song on the record in terms of the headspace it was written from, because I wrote that song during my spring break when I was home. And at that point, the alcoholism had fully settled in. I was carrying habits from college back to home. It was uncontrollable. But I had also convinced my parents and myself, I'm going to stay in San Diego for another year. I'm going to give it more of a chance. And I told my band, who I'd been telling for a whole year, I'm going to come home. I told all my bandmates, I'm sorry, guys. Like, I think this is it. I'm going to stay there. And I just had convinced myself that this was the best year of my life. Like, even though it's a very happy song, Turtle Swimming in Static is written by a very unreliable narrator, like just like kind of trying to spin it in a good way. And yeah, it's kind of like the refrain at the end, turtle swimming in static never existed anyway. It's like that, I don't know, something that I was going back to in San Diego was an illusion and it wasn't real. And it took a lot for me to learn that, kind of figure it out. So I have a cool way of viewing turtles swimming in static that most people wouldn't, I'd say.
Well, that's why we're here, and we did it. Thanks for indulging me in this walkthrough of each song. I feel like this whole thing has been needed. I haven't done it. I don't know how, if you've listened to older episodes of my podcast.
I have.
The ones
I watched
with
one with
music.
Yeah,
those were great. But they don't have that feature in Spotify anymore, the music and talk. But there were issues with that anyway, because it wouldn't put it on every platform. But I really was getting into a groove with that, and I really loved walking through an album this way. And
I've enjoyed this. Like, you say indulging you, you've just been indulging me this whole time. Like, this is fun. Like, to just be able to talk in depth about this stuff. It's really nice.
Yeah, and I think this album deserves it because it's a concept album. It comes from a very dark place in your life that you've done a lot of inner work, and I commend you. I think it tells a good story, and
thank you, man.
What else you want to talk about? Anything else before we sign off? You got shows coming up. This might take like a few weeks to come out, so like the show I'm gonna go to, you all can like look up on Instagram and see if I actually went.
See some photos maybe. We have a show. I'm playing at Crossroads on next Thursday, August 15th. We're playing at the Meat Locker again on the 21st. Playing at Arlene's Grocery in Manhattan on August 26th. We'll be back at the Meat Locker on September 4th. Back at the Meat Locker again on September 15th. We'll be at Tyrannies in Montclair on September 28th. So definitely got a lot of shows coming up. Gonna start recording the second album next month. And I don't know. Like, things have picked up for us since the album came out, since tour happened. Whereas last time I ended it all, I went to college. Like, I put pause on the band. This time we're actually going to hopefully follow the momentum. So I've never been more excited about Aidan Jack Finnecy as a band. And I really mean that. So it's cool.
I'm excited for you. I think you got to keep it up. You're very talented, and you could do it. Rich. You could grind through it.
I appreciate that so much. Thank you, man.
It's going to be a grind, but that's how it is. It's a grind no matter what, No matter what you do, you're going to suck at it and you're going to have to learn. But I feel like you already have a head start with this is a great album. And keep it up.
So much,
your Instagram for people to find you is just Aidan Jack Finnecy, right?
Yeah. AIDANJACK FINNECY at Aidan Jack Finnecy everywhere. And Rich, I'd say the same to you. You're grinding, man. Like I love this podcast. I hope to be on
Thanks.
again. I've seen
Oh,
Harrison's been on a
we
good
got to do it.
Harrison's
Yeah.
been on a good amount of times. I would love to. I'd love to
Yeah,
hop on.
yeah. Let's do it. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I've been
Sweet.
trying to scale up for that reason because I want to just keep talking. This is
Yeah.
like kind of essential for me. Even like I just like to kind of like I like with Harrison, right? Like we talked about a lot of his music, but then it's like you want to riff on just other shit too. Like,
Yeah, of
and
course.
they both serve a purpose, and it takes more than 2 hours. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm hopefully I'm trying to do one every 2 weeks now. We'll see how it
Nice.
goes. You know, life always
That'd be cool.
throws you like these crazy things where it's like this year I was like I'm gonna do one every 2 weeks, and then it was like March and none had come out yet. But yeah. We'll do this again for sure, and hopefully I see you on Saturday.
I really hope so. Let me know.
I do
I'm
too.
gonna get you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll get your number after this, and we'll text. That'd be fun.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And to the listeners, if you've gotten this far, I really appreciate you. Definitely check out the album. I'm sure you have. The best way to listen to it is probably to stop and listen in between each one or something, but whatever. I'll figure that out later. But yeah, thanks for listening. And if you've gotten this far, make sure you